Pretty nice.
Welcome back to the circuit. Ricardo, Tormo here in Valencia. It's round 2 of the FIM CEV Repsol. Third race of the day, it's Moto2, the European Championship. 19 laps for these riders at the 4-kilometre long circuit. Anti-clockwise, of course, 9 left-hand corners, and 5 of which are right. An interesting layout, some close racing that we had in the 2017 season, especially between Ricky Cardouse and Eric Granado, last year's European champion. None of those riders racing here this year, so we'll have a new podium in the Moto2 European Championship. It's going to be very, very exciting. Well, last time out in the Moto2 Championship, Fran, we had some history made. We had a stock 600 bike winning race 1, and then we had Jesco Raffin on the top step in race 2.
Yeah, it was a pretty interesting weekend in Portugal, especially, like you say, that win for Lopez. Home turf as well, and incredible, just bolted at the front. You know, just dominated it. Super, super impressive. But now we've got the kind of, you know, the more expected front runners back up at the sharp end this time. And like you say, Jesco Raffin, winner in Estoril, and now on pole position here as well. And yeah, I think it's a fairly sizable gap on the grid, but that is sure to change in the race, I think. Certainly the two guys starting alongside him, Edgar Pons and Lukas Tulovic, will want to strike pretty early, I think, so that he can't use that advantage that he seemed to have in qualifying.
Certainly, you can see the weather conditions here at Valencia. Looking pretty nice out there. A few clouds in the sky, but what's the weather like out, friend? You've had a chance to have a quick wander outside.
I have indeed, on my forays to Parc Ferme. Yeah, it's not quite as breezy as it was earlier. At the start of the ETC race we've just had, it was very, very windy. Now you can see a few people wrapped up. I'm all right, being British, maybe a little bit hardier. So it's certainly not too cold out there, but it is a bit breezy. But it does seem to have died down a bit, so that's positive. But obviously these guys not quite so affected by that either, so that's good for them. Just got the sun going in a little bit, we can see from our commentary box. Few grey clouds overhead, but I don't think anything to worry about. It looks like it's going to stay pretty dry and stable.
Well, hopefully that's the case. It was very nasty, actually, yesterday. As we said, Moto2 European Championship had qualifying yesterday morning and yesterday afternoon. The morning session absolutely fine, no problems for those guys. In the afternoon, however, 15 minutes into the session, it absolutely bucketed it down with rain. And it made things very interesting because, of course, nobody could improve their times whatsoever. So it really did put a dampener on proceedings, if you'll pardon the pun.
Lovely, lovely. Yeah, it was a bit of a double challenge for those guys yesterday in qualifying. Obviously, second session of the day, pretty cool compared to their earlier session, which doesn't help. But then also, yeah, that rain really definitely put a stop to anyone being able to improve. So Raffin keeps the crown on top there, and he'll be starting from pole.
He does, yeah. Jesco Raffin, of course, in the Moto2 World Championship last year. Good stuff from Raffin, actually, in a couple of rounds. It didn't really show his full potential, though, so he's taken the step back to the European Championship. I dare say he'll probably be wanting to make a step back into the World Championship before too long as well. I
think that will probably be the goal. I think what he wants to do this season at European level is really just show what he can do and really stamp some authority on it. But there's a couple of guys wanting to do that. You know, you've got Augusto Fernandez also moved back down, although he was in the World Championship a lot less time. Maybe a little bit less to prove, and also super young, so just, you know, making those steps. And then Edgar Pons, obviously also a former World Championship rider. These three guys, yeah, I think they top warm up. And I think they'll hopefully be having a bit of a battle at the front. And then you've got the likes of Lukas Tulovic with a, you know, not a former World Championship rider. Very different journey to where we are now. And yeah, we'll have to see what he can do.
Yeah, he's been a busy boy, Lukas Tulovic, actually, as well. He's competing in the RFME Stock 600 Championship this year, and also in Moto2. Had an injury in Estoril with his wrist, but still managed to finish on the rostrum in race number 2. And he seemed pretty confident when we were speaking to him yesterday as well.
Yeah, seemed pretty happy, and says the wrist's a lot better. So hopefully that's not going to really play much part in today's race. One race now as well, which is a little bit less of a challenge. Obviously, riding injured is tough enough without having to do it twice in one day. But yeah, he says he's pretty much back up there now, and it was incredibly close between him and Edgar Pons in qualifying. There's just 29 hundredths in it between the two. So Raffin got a bit more breathing space up to pole, but we'll have to see what happens. It's yeah, I think a lot of this race initially is going to come down to the start, and if he can get a good drag off the line, we'll have to see if he can keep that pace up and build a gap.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Here is Jesko Raffin, the rider from Zurich, making his way to the grid. As we said, race winner in the second race at Estoril last time out. Looked like he was going to be challenging for it in race 1, but nobody predicted what would happen with Ivo Lopez on the Stock 600 bike. He ended up finishing in 3rd position on the rostrum. Made amends, as we said, in race 2, but leads the championship, as you can see with the graphic on your screen. 41 points is what he has, the 21-year-old. He is in very, very good shape here this weekend.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's, well, I mean, like we were saying, there's 3 big guns on the front row there, and then also the likes of Hector Garzo, Xavier Cardelus. Obviously, Cardelus had a fairly interesting time in Estoril at the first corner. He'll be wanting to make a less dramatic day of it today. Here we have Edgar Pons, another of those riders who's yeah, really wanting to show some serious form this season after a more difficult year last year in the World Championship. And yeah, I think it could be an interesting fight between these guys. Like I said, Tulovic and Pons incredibly close on lap times in qualifying, and yeah, it was just that one session. Oh, looking a bit breezy again in the stands there. But then on row 2, we've got Augusto Fernandez, another rider with a lot of experience. So it'd be pretty interesting. But here's, yeah, young German rider Lukas Tulovic. He's, yeah, on the podium last time out, as you can see there, on the Tech 2 machine. Yeah, saying it's a little bit cold, a little bit surprising maybe for a German to be finding this chilly. But yeah, he said, like I say, he's back to fully fit or feels pretty good, and only one race today, so it's a pretty good chance, I think, for him to really get in this fight with these guys. So yeah, 2900ths is not very much at all, so he'll be feeling pretty confident. And then Fernandez, again, it's close. It's only just over a 10th back to the start of row 2. But I think it's going to be an interesting race. They're all fairly close on lap times, and we've got some guys wanting to prove a point and some guys wanting to make their name a little more. So here is Fernandez. 2 second places in Estoril. Pretty solid start. And yeah, now you can see number 73, that's reversed now, coming back down into the Moto2 European Championship. And on a Suter, so we've got a good spread of machinery at the front here. I think for Fernandez, it's much like for Pons and Tulovic as well, it's a case of just trying to maybe get in front of Raffin quite early and not rough him up, I wouldn't say, but certainly make some moves and make sure we can't use that advantage of pace that he showed in qualifying. And here we have Hector Garzo, so teammate to Lukas Tulovic. Again, it's just a couple of tenths back from 3rd to 5th on the grid, and even back from 2nd to 5th. So super close, as we often see in Moto2. It can be really competitive. 8th place in Estoril, so, you know, well, sorry, 8 points. So it's yeah, pretty solid start. But I think he might have been expecting a bit more. We saw big flashes of pace from him when he was a replacement rider in Moto2 World Championship. So I think Garzo is one of those guys who maybe is looking to use Portugal as a solid start, but then really attack a bit further forward this weekend. Now we're back on a more, you know, familiar circuit. Maybe. Yeah,
after challenging so well last year, it kind of didn't really kick off in the same way he wanted to for the 2018 season for Hector Garzo, did he? Likewise, this man Xavier Cardelus, I think things went very wrong for him very quickly in race 1 at Estoril, crashing out at that first corner in one of the most spectacular incidents I think I've ever seen. It was
not so spectacular for him. It was actually, you know, not so bad, but the bike really did ricochet down that runoff area. I think he even made it over the fence. So a bit of a mess down there, but it was super tough conditions in Estoril. Bits of damp track, bits of track that were not damp but looked it, and vice versa. So, you know, it was a bit of a yeah, a bit of a kind of test of bravery into turn 1 there, and unfortunately Cardelus is a little bit braver than maybe the track would allow him to be. Well,
we were talking about this as well with Lukas Tulovic yesterday, actually, and we were saying about the track, and he said, well, parts of it have been resurfaced at Estoril, which made it even more difficult because that didn't have any more grip, or even less grip in some circumstances, than we had on the old track, and the old track hasn't been resurfaced in a long time. Meanwhile, here's Tommaso Marcon on the speed-up machine. You can see him there lining up in 10th position on the grid. Keep an eye out for the Italian rider. Solid start to his season and the only speed-up on the 2018 grid. So a bit of work to do for him. But
Yeah, definitely. But I think it's, again, it's really, really encouraging to see all the different manufacturers pretty much up there on the grid here. We're really competitive. That's always a good thing. And yeah, here we have Kawasaki again, another important manufacturer in Moto2. Mikel Pons, 20 years old, and yeah, not a bad start to the season, and pretty solid qualifying. So it's, yeah, looking okay this weekend so far.
Yeah, Mikel Pons competed in the CEV Repsol in 2013, and also the year before in 12, and also latterly in 2015 with the DV Racing outfit. So he's got some good experience actually on board the Moto2 machinery, as Mikel, and doing a pretty good job out there actually on board the Kawasaki. It's as you say, it can be a bit tricky. Something who I expected a little bit more from, I've got to be honest, in qualifying, is this man here, Dimaseki. 9th position for him, 4th in the championship. You can see there 2 4th places in Estoril, but unfortunately just not really clicked for him in qualifying. 9th position on the grid. Yeah,
it was a super good weekend for him in Portugal, but yeah, maybe not quite what he was wanting. But again, the gaps are so close. From Marcon down to Eki is less than 2/10 for 3 grid positions again. So, you know, maybe not necessarily the reality of what we're going to see out on track over a longer race distance rather than just 1 lap pace, but they are super close together. So, yeah, he can take some heart from that. But 9th, yeah, like you say, after 2 4ths as well to start the season, former podium man. He'll really want to crack on and move forward, I think.
Here's a name that's very familiar to quite a few people. David Sanchez on board the stock 600 Yamaha. He actually replaced Augusto Fernandez in the Easy Race team last year and has made the step up to be back on the Moto2 grid, albeit on the stock bike. Lines up 10th on the grid, though. Very impressive performance from the Yamaha R6 rider. Really good stuff to see him battling in and amongst the top 10. He could spring, I reckon, a few surprises on in this race.
Yeah, it's always good to see that level of competition, and yeah, super impressive to get up there in the top 10.
Certainly is. Here's Alessandro Zacconi battling, of course, for 4th position last time out with Dimaseki in race 2, right up until he crashed at the last minute. Big disappointment for him, but lines up in 11th position on board that Kawasaki. You can see there the blot on his copybook being the DNF in Estoril race number 2. So shame for him, but he'll be full of confidence following that first race and hopefully looking to make some charges up the field.
Yeah, definitely. It was a pretty impressive start to his Moto2 European Championship career, to be honest. Came from European Supersport. A couple of years ago, made a big splash when he arrived there. So yeah, it's good to see, you know, solid top 10 form most of the time so far. I want to make a step now, I think, and yeah, like I said, he was battling up at the front last time, just crashed out. So this time, I think, just iron out some of those kinks. Zacconi could be a bit of a dark horse.
Marcel Brenner making some steps up the order this year. You can see a 5th and a 7th place finish in Estoril last time out, leaves him 5th in the championship overall. He'll be hopeful of some good results. Actually very impressed with how he's been doing in the first 2 rounds of the season, Brenner, because he had a difficult year of it last year, actually. Never really sort of clicked for him. Struggled a little bit with injury over the course of it as well, which really hindered his charge. Didn't make things too easy for himself. Interested to see how he gets on. And Corentin Perolari racing in the World Supersport Championship now this year, but also, of course, on the Moto2 grid with the Transformers outfit in the rounds that don't clash. 20 years old, Corentin, but given the experience that he's got in the Endurance World Championship, of course, in the Supersport Championship now, of course, and in Moto2 as well, it seems like he's been around for ages.
Yeah, it's one of those riders with a pretty impressive CV. It's always great when you see guys who've got a lot of experience in different categories as well. You know, there's a lot of different opportunities to do a few different events, and like you say, like endurance is one. Actually, I think Nicola Canepa may be here. I think I saw him earlier in the paddock. But yeah, right, here we go. Starting grid.
Let's have a look. Jesko Raffin, Edgar Pons, Lucas Tulovic are on row 1. Row 2, Augusto Fernandez, Hector Garzo, Xavier Cardelus. Row 3, the Italian Tommaso Marcon, Mikel Pons alongside him. And then the Indonesian rider Dimaseki on the 3rd row of the grid, the outside of the 3rd row of the grid in 9th position.
Then we have David Sanchez, and then Alessandro Zacconi, Marcel Brenner, Corentin Perolari, Ikuhiro Enukida, and Mateus Megler, and then Benny Solis, Daniel Saez, and Alejandro Canovas.
Very exciting stuff. Good to see. We'll talk more about the Japanese rider in just a few moments. Charlie Cooper, Roman Fischer, Alessandro Zetti, Alexander Anin, Luis Pomares, James Flickcroft, Ricardo Storiano, Federico Menozzi, and Xavier Artime are on row 9.
And then Filipe Legalo on row 10 there.
Yeah, 60 years old, Philippe Legallo. I still can't believe that every time we mention his name.
It's impressive, you know, people talk a lot about Valentino Rossi. Where's the chat about Philippe Legallo?
Oh, yeah, exactly. It's very very impressive indeed.
No, it's pretty cool. It's great as well. Obviously, just absolutely loves racing, and it's fantastic to see that, really, just that level of passion to keep doing it so long.
Yeah, we're talking about Ikiro Enukido, the Japanese rider with the SAG team. Some problems here, by the way, for Hector Garzo on the starting grid. So the Team Wimu Tech 3 rider having a bit of an issue stalling his bike, but it's only on the warming up lap, so he'll be able to make his way back through and onto his original grid position, which is not too many riders there for Garzo, but a bit of an unsettling in confidence for him. Yeah, definitely. It can actually make a bit of a difference. Obviously, that's the time when you kind of wanting to start to zen out a bit and start to focus on the start of the race, and when you have an unexpected issue like that, it can, just shake you up a little bit, but he's fairly experienced, so hopefully he'll be able to keep it together and put that behind him by the time they get back onto the grid, get ready to roll. As I was talking about Enukido, before I interrupted myself, he's made his way over with the SAG team, so they're fielding one of their Moto2 World Championship bikes just to give the Japanese rider a run, which is really good to see, actually, because there's not a lot of Japanese talent making their way through in Europe at the moment. We've got Nakagami, who's representing in MotoGP, but not too much in terms of the intermediate and lower classes, especially. Certainly in the intermediate class, and those guys is a little bit difficult at the moment, but yeah, Nakagami obviously now representing in MotoGP. We've got a few good Japanese talents a little bit further down who are on the way up. Obviously, a few guys in the junior talent team from the Asia Talent Cup. There's always a pretty full grid of Japanese riders in the Asia Talent Cup. Obviously, there's a lot of racing culture and a lot of racing in Japan. So it's great to see more and more of those guys now starting to filter through and get those chances to show what they can do. Yeah, it certainly is. Well, let's see how he gets on riding with the SAG team on the Kalex, as we said. Riders on their warming up lap, getting the crucial heat into the tyres and brakes. I tell you what, the sun's come out again. It's just peeped through the clouds. It went in about 20 minutes or so ago. I did wonder, with the grey clouds going overhead, whether we might see a light sprinkling, but it doesn't look like it's going to affect things too much now. A light sprinkling? A light sprinkling. I think we're safe from the light sprinkling. You never know. I didn't think we were going to get one yesterday, and then it absolutely bucketed it down. I was a bit worried because it didn't have my coat. Yeah, this is true. I got trapped. I was down at Petronas Sprinter Racing talking to those guys, and I was in the trailer and then came outside absolutely drenched. So hopefully we're not going to get that again. But no, I think it's going to stay pretty dry. Just sometimes sun out, bit of shadow, but not too bad. I think it should be a good race. Well, here's the man who lines up on pole position then, Jesko Raffin on board the Swiss Innovative Investors Kalex. Some new sponsorship on board his helmet as well from a particular fast food chain. That'll make him a bit faster on the circuit as well. Let's wait and find out. I like the link you made there, rather than Burger King not exactly being the healthiest of foods. But no, fast food it is, so we'll go with that. But it's also good to see big companies like that sponsoring motorcycle racing. Certainly is. Edgar Pons on the front row, as well as Lukas Tulovic. Look to the top left corner of your screen. Wait for those red lights to come on. The Moto2 race here at the circuit. Ricardo Tormo in Valencia is underway, and a really good start from Jesko Raffin. Slight wheelie from him as we head down towards that first corner. Pons looks like he got away well. Did Tulovic get swamped up? I think he might have done, because Augusto Fernandez made a very good start indeed. And as we head down towards the first corner, the front row stays exactly the same going through turn number 1. Xavier Cardelus making some ground as well, as Augusto Fernandez runs it a little bit wide and loses a bit of time, with Hector Garzo now going up the inside of Cardelus in towards turn number 2. Does the Spaniard make it stick? No, he just loses out and has to slot in behind Fernandez as well. Yeah, I think it almost looked like Tulovic was going to lose out, like you said there, and he was a little bit wide maybe through there. But in the moment, as you were, and I think Edgar Pons will pretty quickly want to try and make a move on Raffin, because already those two just starting to, and Cardelus, they're looking a bit racy back there. Made a good start and now looking to move through. Oh, I'll tell you what, Fernandez, that's the second time he's run wide in the space of a lap. Don't think he gained too much of an advantage as he drops behind Cardelus now. Meanwhile, Eki and Brenner doing very well in these opening stages. Brenner looking very, very racy indeed as we go through that left-hander. What a fantastic camera shot that is. Really good stuff. Somebody running a little bit wide through there, though. Let's pick up the different lines that the riders are taking throughout the course of this race, but it's still very much the same in the top 3. Cardelus in 4th position from Fernandez on the opening stages. A nice clean start, though, there. Everybody getting away very well indeed. Yeah, definitely. I think for Raffin, that's pretty much the dream start. And look, already he's really trying to break the field up and just make a break for it. But hopefully these guys can get into a rhythm and try and stay with him. But Tulovic seems to have regrouped a little bit from some maybe messier points on that first lap. But Cardelus as well.
a little bit wild there, but now back into 4th place and looking a bit more secure. Oh, pretty...
you say more secure, but it was looking a bit loose into that first corner,
immediately proving me wrong there, but yeah, and then obviously Fernandez, like you say, had a couple of runoffs there. I want to be a bit careful about that. We saw a few guys in the ETC race penalised for that.
Yeah, we certainly did. Won't be giving any results away from the ETC race, but regardless, it was very action-packed indeed. Now we can see Fernandez there on board the black number 73 machine, the only suitor on the grid, chasing down the Mistral 610 machine of Lukas Tulovic, a brand new frame and chassis for him for this weekend. He's got the 2017 bike. He was actually using the old 2014 spec machine. That, I'm afraid, is number 37 of Alexander Anin that has ended up having some problems on the opening lap on board the Yamaha. Let's see what happened. Well, it was a run-on at the corner. Did he manage to stay on the bike? Just about, but doing his best dirt tracking impression there. Not quite sure where he's off to either.
Nah, I would have said maybe a little bit more left there, head back to the solid stuff, but it's always a bit of a heartbreaker when people manage to stay on in the initial run-off and then actually just lose it and just drop it at super low speed. But he did a pretty good job there getting back on track, even though yeah, a bit of an excursion.
Certainly was. Well, look at the gap that Garzo and Pons now have to the race leader of Raffin, and similarly look at the gap that they have behind now to Cardelus and Fernandez as well. So this is very interesting. It is.
Raffin's really bolted so far, but it looks like Tulovic is really tacked onto the back of Edgar Pons, and he might even be looking for a move already down now into turn 1. Looks pretty... Oh, it's pretty sideways there. Yeah, a bit late there. I wondered if he was going to try it or not, but no, not quite. But yeah, he's really right there and looking to, I think, make a move. Again, Pons a little bit squiggly into that corner there, and I think Tulovic will be thinking, right, I need to get past you now, let's go.
It's been a challenge for Edgar Pons, hasn't it, the last couple of years? Difficult few years for him in Moto2 in the World Championship, and trying to regroup, trying to regain some of that confidence. Yeah,
I think definitely, and it's a good boost for him, obviously, to be back here and immediately back at the front end again of the front end. What am I saying? You know what I mean? That's more of a bike term, but back at the sharp end, indeed, that's the phrase. So that's good for him. Good confidence boost to, yeah, sort of get back to the form that saw him obviously win here big in the past. So yeah. But yeah, like you say, it was a bit more difficult in the World Championship, likewise Raffin. So Tulovic is really the only one who's not got that similar level of experience. So it's pretty impressive right now to see the German up here and fighting for certainly the podium at the moment, and maybe even we'll have to see if he was able to hunt down Raffin.
Yeah, time will tell on this one. It's a 19-lap race, so plenty of time to decide what is going to happen up at the sharp end. At the moment, Raffin's pace is absolutely incredible. He was nearly 7/10 of a second quicker than Edgar Pons. Pons, of course, made a few uncharacteristic errors. Similarly, though, as well, Tulovic, we were talking to him, as we said yesterday, and he's vying for the podium, but he's not sure about how tyre life is going to be on board the bike. He said he's over 1 lap, he's quick, but over the race distance, it could be a challenge.
Yeah, you saw him also taking a quick look behind there out of the final corner. And you've got to love the Moto2 sideways style. It's so different. Like we just had the obviously ETC and Moto3. It's so different than back on the bigger machines. Legs out, a bit of sideways, a bit more drama. And there we see
Garzo versus Fernandez for 4th place, and Fernandez gets it done around the outside at turn number 2.
That was pretty impressive stuff there.
Yeah, really exciting from Augusto Fernandez. Just had the tyre allocation come through from Dunlop, and no change from what we were expecting. Everybody on the 0 rear, aside from the 2 stock 600 riders who are on the 1 compound of rear, which probably means nothing to you or me, but I believe it's a softer compound of rubber, effectively, the 0 compound. Here we can see some problems for rider number 11 with a jump start, and that...
Ricardo
Soriano, yes, right at the back of the grid. So ride through penalty for him.
Yeah, that's going to be pretty tough as well when you've not started quite near the front, and then, yeah, obviously, at least, you know, taking it quickly and can get back on track. But it's a bit of a heartbreak because it's just a split-second difference sometimes, these things.
Yeah, it certainly is. Well, he's racing with the Marinelli Riva Snipers team, who have put a stock bike in the field for this weekend. And unfortunately, with the there only being one Moto2 race, it makes things just that little bit more difficult to get a better result. And of course, the grid is a little bit bigger. 29 riders on the grid that we had compared to the smaller grid in Estoril for the opening round of the championship. Jesko Raffin comes over the timing line then, leading the way quite commandingly. Good advantage he's got of over 1.2 seconds compared to Edgar Pons now. Lukas Tulovic in 3rd place, just dropping off the back a little bit of Pons there. Meanwhile, Fernandez in 4th place, Garzo inside the top 5. I have to say, I was expecting Garzo to be fighting in and amongst the front group. It's what we saw from him last year. Yeah,
definitely. That's a little bit surprising. And also Tulovic now, yeah, like you say, that gap suddenly opened up there. He looked like he was almost getting held up before by Edgar Pons, but maybe Pons, obviously, like we saw a few little moments, a little bit scrappy. If he's managed to pull that back together and iron those out, then maybe he's now got a bit more pace hiding in there. But yeah, I don't know. Tulovic, we'll have to see what happens, like you say, over race distance, tyre wear and everything. But Fernandez certainly seems to have managed to make that move stick on Garzo. And then we've got Dimas Eki next. So he's made a little bit of progress up from his grid position, which is good for the Indonesian rider. Obviously, superb weekend in Portugal to start the season. And then just a little bit tougher time of it here, but the lap times were super close. So we'll have to see how it pans out. We've only done, we're on lap 5 of 19, so there's a fair way to go here.
Yeah, it certainly is. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. Dimas Eki, of course, the only Indonesian. Oh, that's Garzo that's gone down. No, it's Tulovic, I apologise. Lucas Tulovic who's crashed out of the podium battle. What a shame for the 17-year-old. Well, I'm afraid to say it's what happens in bike racing sometimes, and unfortunately he will be very disappointed with that one. So close to the back of Edgar Pons. Hopefully we'll get a replay of what happened to him on track, but unfortunately that for him means he's out of the podium battle and potentially out of the points as well. But it does mean the podium battle spices up between Garzo and Augusto Fernandez, who would have been right behind and probably seen the incident on track as well.
Yeah, definitely. And just as I've said that Fernandez seemed to have managed to stay comfortably in front of Garzo, I'm proved immediately wrong. And yeah, it's a shame for Tulovic, obviously, as well, with the Moto2 guys only having one race this weekend. So, but he looked okay at least, and obviously trying to get that bike restarted. You can restart in this championship, no problem. Give it a push and see if you can carry on. But yeah, it's going to be difficult for him to try and score points now.
Yeah, it certainly is. Well, there's still a long time in the race, which is some kind of a blessing for him at least, is that he'll have a bit of time to try and make up some ground over the rest of the field.
Yeah, hopefully we'll be able to get that start again and get back in it. But now, like you say, this has suddenly hotted up now, and it's for the podium as well. So, I don't know, like we said, Garzo expected a little more explosive pace maybe from him. But now we're starting to see a little bit more. Him versus Fernandez should be pretty good battle, hopefully, if they're going to stay locked together and fight this out. Yeah,
two riders with World Championship experience. Of course, Fernandez with far more compared to Garzo, but regardless, some riders, well, all the riders inside the top 4. You have to look to Eki, the only rider who's not actually, I say not made a World Championship debut, but he did last year in Malaysia, come to think of it.
There you go, you see, there's some good pedigree in that top 5 there. So, yeah, I don't know. I think this is going to get pretty close, I think. I think Garzo and Fernandez, they look pretty evenly matched at the moment. Have to see if now Fernandez can repay the favour into turn 1. But, and that gap at the front is about 1.2 seconds at the moment between Raffin and Pons, so it's not actually that much different. And their lap times were pretty close together in favour of Raffin, still managing to just pull away. But it's not an absolute demolition derby by any means, and there's a lot of laps to go still.
Yeah, certainly are. Well, it's interesting to see what happens. Benny Solis has made his way into the points. A torrid start to the season and life in the European Moto2 Championship for the American rider from North Carolina. He unfortunately crashed out of both races in Estoril. A real disappointment, a real learning curve for him, and he's now inside the points in 14th position. So be keen to see what sort of progress he makes over the course of the season. We know that the team, of course, can fight for the podium. We saw that with Joe Roberts last year. We're seeing it now with Edgar Pons, his teammate on track as well, in 2nd position. Well, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Benny.
Yeah, definitely. I think, yeah, tough start to it, really. But hopefully here, if it can get some, just get a solid result, really, and then regroup a bit and get ready for the next round.
Well, Edgar Pons, as we can see here, the number 57, really good time from the Spaniard, holding his own there in 2nd place. Again, he had a really difficult time of it in Estoril. Had a huge crash in race 1. One of the most bizarre incidents I've ever seen, because we didn't actually see the crash on camera. His bike was stricken over one side of the track and he was over the other side of it. Yeah,
it looked pretty difficult to figure out exactly what had happened in the aftermath of that crash. He was on the left of the track. The bike was on the right, some way further down the road. So yeah, I'm not exactly sure, but good he's back out on track now and back in the fight at the front. So again, yeah, that gap came down a little bit that time around. It was just about a 10th quicker than Raffin, so it's back down to 1.1, and you can visually see it a little bit, and obviously that will feel exactly like that for Pons. It's like you know, Rafine is the rabbit and he's the greyhound. So we'll have to see if Rafine's managing that maybe a little bit. If he gets that information on his pit board that he's been closed in on a little bit, it might change the game again.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens with regards to Rafine. Has he got a bit too hard too soon, perhaps, and just used his tyres a bit too much?
Maybe, could be, but not really. I don't know. I think it's going to be pretty interesting towards the latter laps of the race. But at the moment, he's fairly consistent. Nothing too crazy from the Swiss rider. So we just have to see. I think Pons has just got his head down and really focused on that. Just catch the leader.
Yeah, certainly so. Well, Rafine, a hugely impressive performance from the Swiss rider so far. I heard a few people talking in the paddock yesterday about Triumph, of course, because the Moto2 World Championship changes over to the 765cc Triumph engine for the 2019 World Championship, and there were talks about, are we going to be having Triumphs on the grid this year? Will they be changing over to Triumph in the European Championship next year? Will we have a mixture of Triumph versus Honda? Will it be like a two-tier system? And the simple answer is we don't know at the moment. We're waiting to find out.
Yeah, it's always interesting when you get that sort of, well, I was going to say reg change, but not quite. When you get that kind of change in the Moto2 world level, especially as well for some of the teams that have bikes in both, like obviously Swiss Innovative Investors, also Moto2 World Championship team. Yeah, I don't know, it's going to be an interesting future for Moto2, I think. It's looking fairly interesting so far, and yeah, it's a pretty big switch, and we've not had that kind of switch in the intermediate category for, well, a long time, since Moto2 came along, really. Well,
I was talking to a guy called Stuart Nichols yesterday, who is the team owner of the Nikos outfit, who are running James Flitcroft in this race, and I was chatting away to him and I was saying, what do you think about it if we had Triumphs and Hondas on the grid? And he said, well, that's all well and good, but the problem is what happens if you've got a rider that they want to perhaps replace somebody in the World Championship, say somebody's been injured or a circumstance comes about like that, and they said, well, then they've been on a Honda and they're jumping over to a Triumph. It's a completely different bike and you've got to readjust. So
it is, but then you have some riders who, you know, do a lot of different categories and, you know, race in different things, like you know, a good example of a fairly multidisciplinary rider would be Dominic Egerter, who's obviously been on track at Suzuka and had really good showings there, and then also Moto2, race winner, top 10, impressive ride last time out, sadly now out injured for Jerez. So, you know, that can be part of the challenge. Obviously, it's an added challenge and it can make it a little bit more complicated, but, you know, I think that's one of those things. There's a few riders who come in and impress, and then some who find it a bit tougher than they expected maybe, but I don't know. It's an interesting future for Moto2. Like I said, I think it should be a bit of a wobble possibly in the background there for Fernandez. But and now this gap, though, unfortunately has gone up again at the front.
Yeah, Rafine has responded to Pons' charge, hasn't he?
He has, definitely. So he might be just playing it cool and just pounding those laps in and keeping it nice and steady, but we'll have to see. It's still 10 of 19, so it's good to go, but yeah, we'll have to see. The Triumph question is always an interesting one, but
well,
yeah,
one thing's for sure, it's going to make Moto2 in the World Championship next year very unpredictable indeed. Definitely.
I think it's kind of into the unknown for a lot of those guys, and obviously there'll be a few people who'll be probably moving up at the end of this season, and then there'll be a few people who've been in that championship for quite a few years, and then suddenly everything will be you know, a bit reset, bit of a game changer. So it'll be a question of adaptation, and maybe a couple of the guys who will probably be moving up from Moto3, they might have a little bit of an advantage in some ways because it'll be their first time on the machinery in the intermediate class, but also those guys won't have the same level of experience, the guys they're racing against. So yeah, it's I always like to see things like that, how it shuffles the pack, who copes, who finds it a bit tougher. But Rafine almost onto the green there a little bit.
You don't want to be going onto the green there as well, because there are curbs that make it very nasty and can almost launch the bike in some aspects as well. It's not very good at all. Hector Garzo, meanwhile, has gotten the better of Augusto Fernandez. What am I talking about? I'm thinking about a European Talent Cup.
I'm going to say that's really impressive interdisciplinary from the ETC straight into Moto2. But no, yeah, it looks like it's going to be a good battle between these guys. They've been close together, and then now again Garzo, like you say, back in front. But yeah, I'm not sure, because it's pretty close on lap times as well at the moment, although that time round definitely Garzo had a bit of bit of a better run at it. But their fastest laps in the race are very, very close together. So it should be a good battle, that.
Very impressed with Corentin Perellari as well, the French rider, up into the top 10 on board the Transformers machine. That bike, of course, is hugely different to anything conventional in terms of the Moto2 European Championship, because normally you'll see with these bikes they'll run front throttles from Öhlins, Schauer, or some of the suspension manufacturers like this, or WP in some cases as well, or even Kawasaki. However, what the Transformers bike it has differently is effectively it doesn't have front forks, it has a front swing arm on the front of the bike instead. So it's interesting because Ricky Cardouse rode it a couple of years ago now, and he was saying, well, it's a really nice bike to ride, but the problem is that you can ride it and then you can think you've got a really good feeling from the front, you can push it, and then suddenly it will just give way like that. It's really interesting. However, with Corentin Perellari on the bike, of course, a rider, a plethora of experience in the Endurance World Championship, in the Supersport Championship now as well, and of course on that Transformers bike last year and into this year as well. It's going to make his life a bit easier to try and find that base setting. Looks like he's done it quite well, though. Yeah,
it's pretty impressive for him to be in that top 10, and likewise David Sanchez still in touching distance there. Top stock bike by quite some distance there in 11th place. So yeah, that promise from qualifying really showing off in the race. Is showing up in the race as well. So he's having a really good weekend so far here. So yeah, props to him, definitely top stock bike and really in the mix there.
Back to the battle for third place. You can see Garzo still has the better of Fernandez at the moment into the left-hander of turn number 2. We go so easy to lose the front into that corner, as we've seen from various riders over the course of today. Yeah,
now we've got some added stress for these guys as well, with some traffic up ahead that they're going to have to make their way past. Yeah, not too bad. Nicely done there. Oh, Fernandez just trying to take advantage there, but not quite. So yeah, it's always difficult when you've got someone who's a lapped runner or someone who's had an incident a bit further down the field, when you're trying to battle for the position and then also make it past them.
Certainly is. Well, through the left-handed kink we go. Fernandez versus Garzo. Garzo with the advantage on board that Mistral machine at the moment. Fernandez just biding his time. You can see the rear end of that bike chattering away over the bumps through the left-hander. Very interesting corner, that left-hander, because the left-handed kink that leads into it does have quite a big bump, so you have to position the bike right. Interesting to see how different the riding style is between Garzo and Fernandez. You can see Garzo hangs off the bike a lot more as opposed to Fernandez.
Yeah, definitely. It's always interesting to watch guys so close together on track and how the gap kind of changes, and then concertina's back up, who's stronger at what points on the track. Especially these guys now. It's a good few laps already now. I think it's, yeah, they're really sizing each other up here.
Tell you what, just looking out the commentary box window, Fran, at the moment, there's a few grey clouds that are getting a bit more prominent overhead, you know.
Yeah, I'm worried I've been a little bit too optimistic now in promising there'd be no rain. It's, yeah, and certainly you can see on screen as well, it's a little bit darker than it was. But it's a bit strange at the moment. We've got sort of half the track sort of down turn 1, turn 2, we're under that grey. And then around the final corner and that end of the track is under blue sky still. So yeah, we'll keep an eye on that, but can't see any rain at the moment, so we're all good for now. Yeah. You can see Raffine now is really gone out. I think the battle is a little bit over here for Edgar Pons. It's 4.2 now, which is incredible. So good times, but
yeah, I've just checked the weather app on my phone very quickly, and no rain forecast for the rest of the day, so it could just be passing cloud. They're not moving through that quickly, though, so it will certainly affect track temperature for this Moto3 race coming up, and indeed the European Talent Cup race later on, so that's going to make it a bit of an unknown.
Yeah, definitely. So Jesko Raffine now, yeah, he'll be feeling pretty good out there, you know, in the groove, in the rhythm, just pounding around Valencia, ready to take this 25 points. Hopefully, he'll definitely be the guy looking most intently at the sky and praying for it to not rain, I think, in this scenario.
Well, it's going to give it a huge advantage in the championship as well. Of course, finished third in race 1, finished on the top of the rostrum, rather, I should say, in race number 2, and looks like he's going to be repeating that feat, barring anything going wrong. Hopefully, we're not cursing anything there. But it's going to be interesting for Raffine. You can see there the Swiss Innovative Investors team just cheering him on, saying, keep on going, you're doing a really good job. His lap times, though, in comparison to Edgar Pons, well, last time around I think Edgar must have made a bit of a mistake there, you know, because that
gap, definitely, that gap really suddenly shot up again. So it was a 37.4 for race leader Raffine, and then a 38.9 for Edgar Pons. So I think definitely, I mean, Pons has a bit of breathing space back to this battle that's still going on between these two for third. So, you know, obviously if he doesn't think he's got the pace to go and get Raffine, which he doesn't seem to have this weekend, then, you know, obviously he wants that second place and he wants it securely, bank those points, move on. So he doesn't want to be taking too many risks either, but yeah, pretty big difference there between those two lap times.
Yeah, it's going to make it very interesting on these last 5 laps of this race. Jesko Raffine, as we said, just an absolutely dominant performance from him. Moto2 European Championship.
It's exactly what he wants to be doing, really. Obviously, after, yeah, like we said, tough year in the World Championship. Did have a couple of standout results. He had a really, really good race at Phillip Island.
4th in Australia.
Indeed, yeah. Super, super great weekend there. And not just like, you know, it wasn't a weird race. Nothing really happened ahead of him. He just had great pace all weekend and really showed a flash of proper speed there. But then, yeah, just had a bit of a tough... Oh, it's getting close again here. But, yeah, just had a bit of a tough season. So his mission this year, like we were saying, is literally just take this title, stamp some authority on it, show what he can do, and hopefully, yeah, move back up onto world level again.
Yeah, certainly so. I have to say, I love the livery on Augusto Fernandez's bike. It's so plain, so clean, so, you know, lovely in that sense. It's almost club racer-esque in a way, isn't it? No sponsors on the bike, nothing at all. I
like this pretty interesting collection of adjectives there.
I'm not quite sure where they came from, to be honest. I got the thesaurus out before I did that.
Was it a children's thesaurus?
Yes, it probably was.
I'm so sorry. No, I know what you mean, though. It's nice. Sometimes you get crazy liveries, and also some that are super similar to others. It can be really, really tough to tell who's who. But Augusto, oh, and there we go, a bit wide there for Garzo, and Fernandez straight through to take advantage of that. But it looks great with the black and red leathers as well. It's yeah, really classic. Garzo, I don't know if he's got a bit of an issue, possibly. He seems to have lost a lot of ground there. Maybe not, just a mistake and then regrouping, but it'd be interesting now to see if he can get back onto the back of Fernandez, because they seem to have a really, really similar pace so far. So, yeah, got to really push to try and catch the Spaniard, well, his fellow Spaniard, again now.
Seems you're just making a few too many mistakes in these early races, though, to be honest with you, Hector Garzo.
A little bit, yeah. I think it's quite surprising, because obviously, like we were saying, he made his debut in at world level, and it was super, super impressive on the pace he had there. Didn't finish, but incredible pace. And sometimes you can see the level between Moto2 European and Moto2 World level, a little bit more of a gap there quite often compared to some of the guys in Moto3. But Garzo just got in there and immediately showed incredible speed and was really impressive. So I think, yeah, so far maybe a little bit of a pedestrian start to the season, and I want to kick on a bit now. And yeah, that mistake there, just, you know, didn't really need to give that away there. Could have fought it out to the end, it looked like.
Yeah, very true. Hector Garzo in 4th place now in this race then. Bit of a gap, as you can see, bringing out between Fernandez and Garzo then in towards that first corner. 4 laps remaining of this Moto2 race. Not been perhaps the thriller that we were expecting here in Valencia, but a dominant performance from Jesko Raffine is exactly what it's been. Nearly 7 seconds his advantage over Edgar Pons. He's cleared off out in front. I think he's got one hand on the trophy already for this one, you know. Yeah,
I think for this race, for the rest of the field behind Raffine, it was sort of a Laguna Seca 2008 was needed. Just get up there. If you don't think you can stay with him on race pace, you just got to continually just try and attack, get past him, slow him up, keep him with the pack. And obviously with such an amazing start that the Swiss rider got from pole, that's just not been possible. He's just been able to just make that gap, maintain it, and then pull away. But and then Marcon has got past Eki as well now into the top 5, so that's pretty interesting. And Zacconi's made a little bit of progress there as well, up into 7th, so up from where he qualified. Again, another pretty solid ride. Hopefully this time not too much late race drama.
Indeed, yeah. I have to say though, Miguel Pons, the Spanish rider, looked like he was on a stop bike because he's on a Yamaha machine or chassis. However, it doesn't say on the entry list that he's on a stock bike. It says he's on a Moto2 machine, so I'm slightly confused about that one, to be honest with you. He's currently lining up in 8th place, and that would, if he was on a stock bike, which is what it looks like to the naked eye, he would be up inside the as the fastest stock rider in this race. However, doesn't look to be that way at the moment. We'll try and get some confirmation for you on that one after the race. Yeah, like you say, at the moment, top stock runner on the timing screens is David Sanchez in 12th at the moment. So again, not lost out too much. I think Xavier Caldaluz will be a little bit disappointed after this race, to be honest. Up there at the start, a little bit scrappy, but well within the top 5 and fighting it out, and now down in 11th. Yes. So that's a bit of a
tough race for him.
It's been a difficult weekend so far for Xavier, as you say. You started very well. Interesting time for him in qualifying. Interesting time for him in Estoril. Good race 2. Very poor race 1. Not even making it to the first corner, unfortunately for him. Just crashing out on a damp patch going into that first turn. And then just a difficult start to the year. But this is kind of the year where he needs to kick on. He showed good pace, good potential last year. But again, time's going to be running out for the Andorran rider if he wants to step up to that World Championship. Yeah,
definitely. Like you say, it's a bit of a heartbreaker. It wasn't that he crashed out at turn 1. It was he crashed out before turn 1. So a bit of a, it was a difficult weekend, obviously, for everyone in Portugal as well. But yeah, 11th place at the moment. I think he'll do a little bit of head scratching before the next round and want to really kick on a little bit. Because, after the start as well, and after a fairly solid qualifying, that's a bit of a, I think that'll be a bit tough to swallow for him. But Benny Solis is up into 13th now, so hopefully if he can keep that together, get some good points, and start his campaign here in Valencia.
Yep, some points on the board, all good experience as well, and crucially some track time where he's not fallen off the bike is exactly what Benny Solis needs really after a difficult start to the year. As we said, 2 crashes in 2 races for him, just trying to push the limits of that Calyx and try and find out where it works, where it doesn't, and looks like he's got his head around it now. 13th position, good grounds to make good progress. Yeah,
definitely. I think he, just points on the board is good, and like you say, track time. There's only a couple of laps to go now, and had some good time on the bike now. And this is a pretty tough track, you know. It's very different to a lot of the others. So good times for him. I think he'll at least be a little bit encouraged that he's made good progress and a step forward from Estoril.
Well, Jesko Raffin absolutely clearing off, as you can see now, nearly 7.5 seconds to advantage. Edgar Pons in 2nd position, 5.5 seconds ahead of Augusto Fernandez in 3rd place. So that battle well and truly done. Hector Garzo in 4th position as well. Very exciting stuff from Fernandez and Garzo to keep us entertained throughout the course of this race. Tell you what, it's been a bit of a lonely one for Jesko Raffin, the race leader who we're looking at now. However, I reckon he'll be pretty pleased with that one. The championship lead in dominant fashion after what's been a very exciting start to his 2018 season. Yeah,
definitely exactly what he will have wanted from this weekend. I think he'll be super encouraged as well. Obviously, former champions Edgar Pons, he's really shown some serious authority this weekend, so I think he'll be fairly buoyed by that as we head off for the next round. And look, now it just looks like he's on rails, just keeping it all together nice and calm and just counting down the laps.
Exactly, it's certainly not as action-packed as it would have been in the Moto2 World Championship for Jesko Raffin, battling with 40-odd different riders for the same piece of tarmac. It's been calm, controlled, comfortable and smooth. Likewise for this man here, Edgar Pons, as well. If it wasn't for Lukas Tudovic crashing out, we might have gotten a good battle for 2nd position at some stage in that race. A shame for the German rider. He'll be hoping to regroup, refocus his efforts for Catalonia in a couple of months' time. Augusto Fernandez, meanwhile, big moment actually for him going out of turn 2 there. Just manages to hold on, but feet off the pegs. That was a big shame for him. Manages to keep it shiny side up, which is pretty crucial, especially with Hector Garzo not too far behind either on the last lap of the race. That would have been a big no-no for him. So through the left-handed kink, then into the hairpin for Jesko Raffin. Just half a lap for home from the rider from Zurich. Really good stuff from him. What a race it has been, dominant and controlled.
Yeah, definitely. Just looks super relaxed out from there, and he can afford to be, like over 7 seconds gap. Really, really great performance from him, and it's good to see him back at the top. It's obviously been a bit of a tough time at world level, so this is a good step for him, I think, and almost a dream start to the season. Not quite 3 from 3, but 2 out of 3 ain't bad. As
Meatloaf once said as well, and you get to chat to him down in Parc Ferme as well there, Fran.
Indeed.
Very nice too. So just one more corner left for Jesko Raffin. The Swiss Innovative Investors rider has absolutely dominated this race from start to finish. He picks the bike up and wheelies it over the line. Jesko Raffin takes the checkered flag here in Moto2 at the Circuit Ricardo Tormo in Valencia. 2 wins in 3 races for the Swiss. Edgar Pons, a brilliant comeback after a difficult race in Estoril. 2 DNFs for him and back onto the rostrum in the European Championship. 2nd place for the Spaniard. 3rd, Augusto Fernandez on the easy race Moto2 Suter. He will be pretty pleased with that one, I can tell you that for nothing. Hector Garzo finishing in 4th place, some solace for himself and for the Team Wumu CMS outfit after the disappointment of Lukas Tulovic crashing out in the early stages of the race. Tommaso Marcon in 5th, Dinas Ecki in 6th, Alessandro Zacconi, a quiet race for the Italian. In 7th place, Mikel Pons in 8th position. Corentin Perolari on the Transformers machine comes home in 9th place. And then Marcel Brenner just manages to get the better of Xavier Cardelus on the line for 10th position, just 10,000ths of a second separating Brenner and Cardelus for the top 10 place. Very exciting indeed. Cardelus coming home in 11th. The top stock runner is David Sanchis in 12th place. There's Edgar Pons. Good start to his season eventually after a difficult couple of races in Estoril to kick off the year. Finally gets some points on the board, gets his name on the rostrum, and will pick up a trophy and some bubbly as well. I think he'll be very happy with that and very relieved as well. After a trying couple of years in the World Championship, we've seen the Pons brothers struggling really in the World Championship, not perhaps just going their way for either of them. And now, of course, with Edgar stepping down to the European Moto2 Championship and finishing on the podium, it will be a really good confidence boost for him. Great for Augusto Fernandez as well. Some good performances for him last year on the speed up in the World Championship. I thought it was a bit of a shame, personally, that he didn't get to keep his ride for the 2018 season, but nonetheless, showing that he is made of stern stuff, finishing 3rd on board a Suter, the only Suter on the grid, let's not forget either. So, of course, there's no reference from any other teams either, no setup as well. David Sanchis rode that bike for the majority of last year. Fernandez was riding the machine for the first round and then ended up jumping over to the speed-up team mid-season onwards, focusing all of his efforts, of course, on the World Championship. Jesko Raffin, a few years in the World Championship for him. Didn't quite work out as expected for the Swiss. Taking a step back with the Swiss Innovative Investors team this weekend. And a dominant race, a dominant performance from him. Didn't look in trouble at all throughout the course of that. And eventually his finishing margin, 7.291 seconds. Hugely impressive stuff from him. And you see, they look like they've just been out to play a round of golf. They're so relaxed. Congratulations all round for the riders. You can see the grey clouds overhead there as well, making things a bit interesting here at the circuit. The sun is still out quite prominently, however, so shouldn't be affecting things too much in that sense. Jesko Raffin there, just about to take off his helmet. I reckon he'll be pretty pleased with that one, don't you? As we said, 2 wins in 3 races for the Swiss rider. It's not to be snubbed at at all, is it really? Up next, of course, we've got the Moto3 Junior World Championship and the European Talent Cup races to bookend the day here at the circuit Ricardo Tormo in Valencia. It's been a really good day of racing so far, and a couple more races are going to make it very, very interesting indeed. You can just see Augusto Fernandez there, the number 37, with his helmet on. Seems pretty pleased with that. Just being congratulated by Edgar Pons in the background as well is the race winner Jesko Raffin. Good stuff from all involved, as we said. Quite a quiet race, really, in terms of the on-track action for the European Moto2 Championship. But regardless, an interesting race as well. Lots of different variables going on over the course of that. In terms of tyre life, who would last, the battle for the podium as well, especially between Fernandez and Garzo, was pretty exciting over the course of that. A shame for Lukas Tulovic, unfortunately crashing out as well. Big shame to end his day in the gravel trap after such promise. So let's wait and see what happens. Jesko Raffin down there in Parc Ferme. We'll be hearing from him in just a couple of moments' time. So down there in Parc Ferme. As you can see, the Dunlop guys as well, just assessing what has happened to the tyres over the course of that race as well. Doesn't look like tyre wear was too much of a concern for the Moto2 riders. That was an incredible race, Jesko. Absolute domination. What can you tell us about it? It's now 2 wins from 3.
It was a very difficult race because the wind was very strong. In the beginning it was more or less okay, but during the race it was strong and it was very difficult to hold the line and to not make mistakes. And I think it was very important to be always on the line and to know how maybe the wind reacts to take other line. And yeah, a perfect race, a perfect weekend. Thanks to everybody for the great job, and I'm very happy.
Dann auch auf Deutsch, bitte.
ein perfektes Rennen. Am Anfang ging es vom Wind noch sehr gut, aber während dem Rennen wurde er immer stärker und stärker. Und es war sehr schwierig, die Linie zu halten und keine Fehler zu machen. Aber am Schluss konstantes Rennen, ein zweiter Sieg. Und ja, ich bin sehr, sehr glücklich und bin allen sehr, sehr dankbar.
Danke.
Jesko Raffin then, perfect weekend as he said, pole and the race win in dominant fashion. Led every single lap as well. Jesko Raffin takes the win then, 7.291 seconds ahead of Edgar Pons. Augusto Fernandez also on the podium. Hector Garzo fourth, good battle between himself and Fernandez for that top three. Tommaso Marcon on the speed up in fifth. Dina Secchi, the Indonesian, in sixth place. Alessandro Zacconi, Mikel Pons, Corentin Perolari. Marcel Brenner completes the top 10. Xavier Cardelus dropping right down to 11th place. David Sanchis, the first stop runner behind. Matthias Megle, Benny Solis with 2 points on the board. Danny Saez 15th. Ikuro Enkido in 16th. Alejandro Canovas and Luis Pomares in 18th position. So some highlights from that race then. Let's have a look, shall we? Well, Edgar Pons was on the front row of the grid. Would he challenge into the first corner? That's what we were all wondering. Well, no, it wouldn't happen like that because the number 2 of Jesko Raffin got the whole shot and led quite commandingly from the start of the race. Pons slotted into second and then Tulovic was in third position. Some good action further back though as well as all the bikes thundered through the first couple of corners. Hector Garzo also making some good ground on the opening few corners. The riders filtered through. Plenty of action going on further down as well. Lukas Tulovic was holding on to third place, closed up to Edgar Pons for a time as well. And it looks as if we could have a really exciting battle between the Spaniard and the German for the second position place in this race. Wasn't to be though for him as he lost the front there, we can see at turn number 4, crashed out did Lukas Tulovic, unfortunately failing to remount as well and not being classified as a finisher. A disappointing end to an otherwise promising weekend for the young German. Meanwhile, out in front, Jesko Raffin led the way quite commandingly on board the number 2. Didn't have any trouble from behind as well. And then we had a great battle for the podium between Hector Garzo and Augusto Fernandez. Garzo taking the advantage initially ahead of Fernandez. Would Fernandez be able to take advantage? Well, through traffic, the Spaniard certainly tried to on his countryman. Did he find his way up the inside into turn 5? Not on that occasion. Kept piling the pressure on though. His racecraft from the year in the World Championship in 2017 really coming into play, trying every trick in the book to find his way past his fellow compatriots. And it seemed only really like it would be a matter of time between the Tech 3 and the Suter riders before they changed position. Meanwhile, Jesko Raffin led a dominant race over the timing line. He came to take his third Grand Prix victory. Sorry, second Grand Prix victory. Third Grand Prix victory, I should say. No, rather I was right the first time around. Second Grand Prix victory in 3 races. There we go, we got there in the end. Second place was Edgar Pons. And of course, Augusto Fernandez did manage to get the better of Hector Garzo for the final spot on the rostrum. A great race all round for all of the Moto2 riders. Very happy for Jesko Raffin, the podium finish as well. Edgar Pons looks pretty pleased with second position. And Augusto Fernandez, well, he seems pretty happy as well with third place, and who can blame him after that one? Top stop rider, of course, being David Sanchis. He finished in 12th place. He's on to the left-hand side of your podium. So 2 riders on the podium for the Easy Race team. First, the Swiss Innovative Investors team just take their trophy for the constructors. 2 Spaniards on the podium, of course, here at home as well. And a Swiss rider as well in the middle. There's David Sanchis, 3 Spanish riders, I should say, on the podium, with David Sanchis in the mix there as well.
Francisco González, representando a la compañía Repsol, hará entrega del trofeo al tercer clasificado, Augusto Fernández.
So Augusto Fernandez finishing in third position on the Easy Race Suter machine. Big smile from him.
Edgar Pons.
Edgar Pons in second position. A difficult season it was for him last year. Difficult couple of years, really, in the Moto2 World Championship. A step back to the European Championship for him. And doing very well indeed. Likewise for Jesko Raffin, who could have predicted this start to the season. He'll have quite a significant advantage in the championship when we show you this. Jesko Raffin taking the race win.
La compañía Repsol hará entrega del cheque de carburante gratis Repsol al vencedor de la carrera de Moto2, Jesko Raffin.
So Raffin takes the petrol check as well. Unfortunately, unlike any of the other riders we've seen on the podium today, he might actually be able to use it in his car on the way home as well.
El vencedor, el himno de Suiza. Un aplauso para los tres pilotos, los cuatro pilotos, David, Augusto,
Swiss national anthem plays out over the circuit. Ricardo, Tormo here in Valencia. And the champagne is sprayed for the first time today, of course. All the riders on the podium old enough to spray the champagne and making the most of it as well. I dare say we're probably going to need a new camera lens after that one, to be honest with you. Augusto Fernandez just getting one over on his teammate David Sanchis there as well. Lovely stuff from all involved. And of course, they'll pose for some photographs as well.
David Sanchis, Augusto Fernandez, Edgar Pons.
So let's have a look at the championship standings after that European Championship Moto2 race. And yes, FIM unsurprisingly leads the way. 10 points his advantage ahead of round 3 in Catalonia. Augusto Fernandez sits in second. Dimaseki still in third place. The Indonesian rider, a 30-point deficit to the top. But good stuff from Eki. Ivo Lopez fourth, Brenner fifth, as you can see. Mikel Pons in sixth, Tommaso Marcon. Hector Garzo with a good strong result in fourth place, moves up to 8th position as well. And Edgar Pons as well, 20 points on the board into 9th place. Not an ideal start for his season, but regardless, good for him. Alessandro Zacconi, Corentin Perolari, Lucas Tulovic, with a DNF, of course, on the board. Xavier Cardelou, Cedric Tongle, then Matthias Megle, Roman Fischer, Alessandro Zetti, and David Sanchis in 18th position. 4 points on the board for the stock Yamaha rider. Really good stuff in the Moto2 European Championship. Up next, it's Moto3.